Host there. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine, Ed.
We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, but I prefer to be called the former mayor rather than ex-mayor.
I apologize, former mayor.
Most ex-mayors are in jail.
Is that? How do you figure that?
former mayor is a lot more sophisticated.
I hear you. I hear you.
Right.
So, tell us when you first got elected. Were you one of the first members? And was it '95?
No, I was one. I was I was the first member of the local planning agency for 2 years, and then went from the local planning agency after we completed the drafting of the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Spent 2 years on that, and then I filled a vacancy on the town council when one of the councilmen who was opposed to the rezoning of Publix was irate about that and stormed out of the meeting and never returned. And they appointed me to that vacancy.
Is that because he didn't want Publix?
He didn't want
to come?
Publix
Because they don't like the big chains here on the island?
That particular gentleman was a very fine gentleman, but he was opposed to all commercial.
Gotcha.
And anyway, then I had to run again, and I was elected twice for 6 years. I was on the council.
Did you like it?
4 years of mayor. Oh yes, I did. It was unique. It was different because we were a new community,
right?
And it was as I say, an opportunity to help because I had a background in Illinois in municipal law. So
Chicago?
In the Chicago area.
All right. Yeah. So you brought the rough stuff down.
Yeah, I was the city attorney and I was in general practice. But a good portion of my practice was municipalities, cities and villages and school districts and that sort of thing. So when they organized the town, they had a cocktail party and I met some of the new council members and in my very modest fashion, I informed them what a brilliant land use attorney I was. and the next thing I know, I got appointed to the LPA.
Nice.
And that started it all.
So you were on the council for 6 years.
Yes.
What would you say the biggest accomplishment was of those 6 years that you were on?
Well, probably the most difficult accomplishment was the drafting of the comp plan and the land development code. When we, of course, didn't have any ordinances, so we had to incorporate the county's ordinances by reference. So we spent 6 years on the land development code, chapter by chapter, 36 chapters. And that took up the 2 years on the comp plan and 6 years on that. But aside from that, that's as far as drafting ordinance is concerned. But I'm very proud of being mayor when we acquired the Mound House property. Mm-hmm. Although others before me had set the groundwork for that, Anita Saracita and others. But I was mayor then, and I was also, we acquired the Newton property. Mm-hmm. And then the other major property acquisition was the mooring fields that we did that during my term as well. What do
you think about the TPI project?
Well, I was very much in favor of it. I think it will be a real good thing for our community. I don't share the concerns of some people that it's going to cause a serious precedent in terms of other zoning issues. I'm back on the LPA again, and I don't think our attitude would be that, well, just because we did that, we have to grant everything that comes down the pike.
Right.
That's not a realistic approach, but I think it'll be very fine. I think it's unfortunate that there's this litigation that's holding things up.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's your impression of the council these days?
My impression of the council? The current council?
Yes.
Well, let me just start by saying I sincerely believe that everybody on the council really loves our community and wishes to do what's right, but I certainly don't agree with everything that they're doing. But I think unfortunately there's some acrimony and the meetings are frankly, a little embarrassing to me in terms of civility and so forth. And
A little embarrassing.
yes, more than a little embarrassing. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
The election coming up in March.
Yes.
What do you want the residents to know about that? How important is it for the residents to get involved and to know who the candidates are in March? I don't think we know who all the candidates are going to be yet. We know two.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe there was a third one that I missed, but we know two. What do you want the residents to know and to do so that they're totally involved in that election?
Well, Ed, I think that's very good point. The number one, they should get as involved as they can be because it's going to be a very important election. I don't know whether the two incumbents, whether Tracy and Dennis are going to run again. I think a lot that will depend a lot on the results of the
Investigation.
The allegations that have been asserted. But if they Ray Murphy served with me on the town council. He was a mayor just preceding me.
Right.
In between Anita Saracita and then Ray and then me. And they should familiarize themselves, of course, with the issues. And the important thing is whether or not the candidate can be very objective and not subjective in their decision-making process. There's always, in all matters, before a town council or any legislative body, there's always two sides to everything, and one has to look at what's in the interests of the individual, if it's a zoning case, versus the rights of the community as a whole, and those are the decisions that have to be made. We need people on there that will look at it from the standpoint of the entire municipality, and not a neighborhood or that sort of thing. Yep.
So, if you were to advise Dennis Bobak and Tracy Gore to run in March, what would you tell them?
What was that?
If you were to advise them on the election in March, what would you say to them about running?
Well, at this point, I would tell them they should apologize for what went on, and just simply say it was just kind of a dumb mistake, you know.
People are forgiving,
and people are very forgiving in this country and in this community, and I think that would be, if I were them, that would be my approach, and try and put it behind me, and I would go on, if I were them, to say that it will be my responsibility as a councilman that when the council comes to a conclusion and votes on something, the majority rules. And even if I'm not in the majority, I'll stand behind what the council does. If I'm in the minority, once the council votes, it's my duty as a council member to support the majority rule of the town council and go along with that and support the fellow council members.
Have you heard the tape?
I've only seen what was published in the newspaper.
And so what's your opinion on what should happen?
What should happen?
Yeah, people respect your opinion probably more than many.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. But I think from what I've heard, it seems to be clearly a violation of the Sunshine Act. At least as far as Tracy's concerned, I'm not too clear on what the tape said, what Dennis said. At very best, he should have recused himself from the conversation and left the scene.
Sure.
But it was clear that Tracy was making it quite obvious that she was supporting the plaintiff in the litigation. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah. So, what do you think is going to happen if you were to make a prediction, last question. If you were to make a prediction, what's going to happen
As to whether
from here to March? What's going to happen with the town council?
Oh, from here to March, I think again it will all depend on whether there are any sanctions imposed on those two council members that we're talking about. If there's sanctions imposed, then I would imagine they would have to certainly, at the very least, recuse themselves from any matters dealing with the litigation, which they should do anyway, regardless of the outcome of the ruling. But and possibly resign. But I think it really depends on the outcome of the whatever the state's attorney deems appropriate.
If you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I am 88.
You're 88 years old.
Yes.
Why do you put up with the aggravation of going to the meetings and staying involved in politics? Why don't you just relax?
Well, I guess masochism. I'm on 5 committees.
Come on.
I'm on the audit committee, the LPA.
You are in great shape for 88.
Thank you. I always thought that being a politician is like in most cases 80% egotism and 20% altruism. Although in my case it was, of course, the reverse of that. It was just wholly altruistic on my part. But I just joy. As I said, I've had like 50 years of background in municipal.
But you're 88.
Work.
I mean, come on,
Yeah.
Relax, sit outside and have a martini.
Well,
What is that? Your drink? What's your drink?
I drink everything.
Nice, nice.
I guess I drink martinis. I rotate it though.
All right.
And bourbon and scotch. So as not to be overly fond of any one. I'm Irish, Ed. You got to know that, right?
That's
Right.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really
All
appreciate it.
right.
Hope you come on again.
Thank you for having me.
And you'll mind us a little goofy show here that you come on. Thanks a lot, Dan. We
All right.
appreciate it very much. I want to make sure I shake your hand before you head out, but thank you. Ex-mayor, former mayor, Dan Hughes, everybody. That is awesome right there. That is 88 years young, and he's still on committees. And I don't know why he does that. I don't know why he puts himself through that aggravation. And here we are waiting for the wife. She's saying she's talking